you guys? How are you all? Thank you guys for being here. So today we're going to talk about Leilani Simon. She was back in court yesterday, and there was a lot. It was a lot. I can't believe there hasn't been more coverage of this because not the full court hearing, but quite a lot of the hearing was recorded and it is out there. We're going to watch some of that. But there's really not been any coverage of it, and it's not even on YouTube. I couldn't find it on YouTube anywhere. Could only find it off of the Court TV website. So I definitely want to, I think it's important we talk about this. I want to follow this all the way to the trial. I know many of you guys care deeply about this. For instance, like our very own Carol freaking Claus, who went yesterday in person. Sorry, you guys, my neighbor was just laughing extremely loud. But anyways, so Claus went yesterday in person, and she's going to come up after. We're going to read through some of this. We're going to watch the beginning of the hearing where they play the 911 call, and then we'll bring her up and kind of ask her how it went, little things that she noticed or wanted to mention. And yeah, thank you so much again, Claus, for going, and thank you for sharing. It means the world to me, and I know many of you guys in the chat. So let me say hello to you guys, and we are going to jump right into it. Hey, Beach Lover. Hey, Nadie. By the way, thank you, Nadie and Jinlu. And sorry that I changed this live. I did originally have it at 9 or 10, and I moved it because Jen was live doing Daybell stuff. Hey, James Blonde. Hey, Bendy. There you are. There's Claus. Hey, Big Mikey. Hey, Stacy Lee. Neat Noodle. Tess. Thank you guys for being here. KNS. Hello, Melissa Jade. And X Amount, which I don't see yet, but I think Melissa saying hi to you. Hey, Hippie Chick. There you are. KNS says, hey, Alex, I didn't know. Thanks for covering this. Isn't that crazy, though, that, a case can be as popular as Sebastian's was? Popular, what a shitty word to use describing this situation, but as talked about as like Sebastian's was, and she goes to court. They play the 911 calls. We're going to hear it. By the way, Danny is who called 911. They played interviews. They went through several of her interviews because, see, she wants a lot of this stuff thrown out, and that's what it was all about. So let me see. Hey, Insure. Anyone I missed, thank you for being here. Hey, Scott. Oh, thank you for emailing that. I appreciate that so much. Hey, Nana, Artemis, Petunia. Anyone I missed? Hey, Claudia. I hope you guys are having a lovely day. It is hot today. Hey, Sparkles. It's going to be like 85. And I'm sitting out here with an ice pack. So, hey, Lucia, you haven't missed anything. We're about to jump right into it. I'm a nice guy. Anybody I missed, thank you for being here. Hey, Unsupervised Maniacs. Good to see you, and thank you for being here. And hey, Rexy. Okay. Well, I was saying, it's crazy that so many people can seem to care so much, right? They wanted justice for Quentin so bad. They were out there protesting and, fighting with the police. They're not doing their job, but they're not even following justice as it happens. And that's really unfortunate, but it doesn't matter. We're going to follow it. Hey, Wicked West. Hey, Chicken Lady. Hey, Tell the Truth. Hey, Natasha. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull this up. Anyone I missed, I do apologize. I've thought about it, you guys, because some people don't like all the hellos, right? They just want to hear the information. Part of me was like, maybe I should start saying hi to everyone at the end and just like have a chat. Okay. So we're going to read this. We're going to watch some of this hearing. We'll have Claus up to discuss what she saw, how she felt, what it was like in person. Because I will say it is totally different being in person versus watching online. Because like you're feeling everyone's energy in the room, which sounds, hippy dippy, whatever, but it's true. So anyway, okay. Frantic 911 calls and numerous police interviews were played in court as a mother whose young toddler was found in landfill fights to keep them out of her trial. That is written so weird. I'm sorry. Let me read that again. So frantic 911 calls and numerous interviews were played in court as Leilani, whose toddler, Quentin, was found in a landfill, fights to keep them out of her trial. Leilani Simon is charged with the murder of her son, 20-month-old Quentin, who was reported missing on October the 5th, 2022. Quentin's body was discovered in a landfill near Savannah more than a month later on November the 18th. Days later, Leilani was charged with murder. In the days and weeks after reporting her son's disappearance, Leilani gave a number of interviews to the police and FBI. Her attorneys have asked a judge not to allow the recordings to be entered into evidence at trial, arguing that the statements were not given willingly. Now, see, Leilani blamed all kinds of people, right? She blamed, actually, I won't even get into it, but you guys know, baby daddy, just could it be a stranger abduction? Even at one point on the news, she thought it would be helpful to say, oh, I just hope that somebody, a good family's got him who couldn't have a kid, and that kind of thing. She told so many different stories. She's trying to say she didn't do that willingly. But prosecutors say that Leilani was chatty and wanted to talk to police from the very beginning. At a hearing on the issue on Tuesday, prosecutors argued that, quote, it was the defendant who drew law enforcement to her residence by making a false report. She brought the police detective on herself to misrepresent what she'd done. Guess who was also texting with police, with detectives and stuff, like similar to, it reminds me of Letitia, Leilani. Leilani and her boyfriend called 911 to report the child missing on the morning of October 5th. The 911 call, played in court on Tuesday, included Leilani wailing in the background and telling the operator, I can't find my son. I can't find my 1-year-old son. During the call, Leilani and her boyfriend tell the dispatcher that they found the front door open and that the child must have been abducted. Let me just check on you guys for a minute. I read that the best live streamers say hi to people at the beginning. That's why I'm never going to be great, because I ain't got time for that. Hey, Kimberly. The hate to others is odd. There are too many awful cases. I don't hate anybody, but it is pretty bizarre to see all this coverage in the beginning. And then today I did a search just to see if I could find the hearing on a YouTube video rather than on this Court TV article. And I could not find it. And it's just shocking that there's not even one place that's covered it or put that out. It's pretty crazy. Hey, preschool granny. Thank you for being a member for 10 months. I appreciate that so much. And Lucia, thank you for being a member for 9 months. All right, let's see. Hey, Amber. The hell people went through just to find that baby. The police, that landfill search. Remember, they had this giant picture of him blown up in the room where they would meet before they'd go out to search. I love this community. Everyone here is amazing. I agree. I'm a nice guy. You guys are the freaking best. I can't believe it's already been 2 years. Oh, yeah. LOL. She was chatty. Melissa, I know that you're going to cover this. I'm sure that you will, because Melissa covered the last one. I only saw it a couple places, like I said. But it's crazy that Court TV, think about how quick they get out those clips from trial, within a couple hours. I'm just surprised that this hasn't made it to YouTube. If not willingly, then how? Well, we're going to listen to what they had to say. Hey, Shauna. He's beautiful, Angela. You're so right. Hey, Millie Lynn. Hey, Steph. With all the blaming and the lying that mom did. Haven't heard anything about this case. Melissa says it's the damage that was caused back during that time. Was it necessary? Harlot, I don't believe those results came back, from the way that I understand it, about testing if that was brain matter. Because remember, we heard in the last hearing that there was possible brain matter in the pack and play. Or I think it was in the pack and play. It's hard to keep track of everything, but yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just, and really just in general, it's kind of interesting that, I don't know. Dragonfly says, hi, all. Long time no see. I know, right? Nothing on this case. Thanks for updating us. What an adorable child. How flipping sad this is. Hope Leilani rots in hell. Okay, let's keep reading, because like I said, we're going to read this. We're going to watch some of the hearing. I want to watch at least, I mean, we could sit here and watch it all. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but you let me know. But towards the beginning, the 911 call is played. And then after that, I want to bring Claus up and let her tell what she kind of saw, because that was very interesting too. I wish that I could have been there in person, especially for this one, because they played her interrogations. They played that, so much, and not everything was recorded. So even if we did watch the whole hearing, the way that I understand it is that some of the more graphic stuff, some of the things were cut out. They asked the cameras not to record everything. So, hey, Bieber. Okay. Parts of 4 separate interviews that Leilani did with police were played in court, highlighting her story, which evolved from her saying that she was home and in bed at midnight before discovering Quentin was missing at 9 a.m. to admitting that she had been out driving to a gas station at 1:25 a.m. Another interview revealed a detective accusing Leilani of needlessly accusing her ex, Quentin's father, of being involved. Leilani's attorney said that she tried to invoke her right to an attorney at least once during the interviews. She can be heard repeatedly denying any involvement in her son's disappearance throughout the recordings, telling detectives at one point, "If I did something, y'all would have found it." According to an indictment filed in the case, detectives believe that Leilani killed Quentin on the morning of October 5th by assaulting him with an unknown object before leaving his body in a dumpster outside of a trailer park near her home. Okay, so we're going to watch it. Like I said, at least some of this. You guys let me know how you want to do it. And I will also, of course, drop the link, share it on the community tab, because the link might be too long, so that you guys can access this yourself. Okay, so
if the defendant wants to stipulate that they were all voluntary, then certainly the inquiry would at that point probably become less searching. But we have a burden, and we intend to carry it, not ask for a little attitude.
Mr. Dean, I'm going to give you a little latitude. I am not overruling the objection. I am overruling the objection, but I want you to rein it in, because I do understand the objection about where we are right now.
Now, let's go to the evening of October 4th.
So this is a detective on the stand. I think that you guys want to watch it all. It's an hour and 15 minutes long. And then I guess I'll just try not to interrupt a lot and watch, and then we'll bring Claus up and have that discussion after. Let me know if that's okay for you guys. An hour and 15 minutes is kind of long. However, it's not, I couldn't find it on YouTube otherwise. So I can share the link, though, like I said, to the web. It's on Court TV's website.
Like the night of October 4th / morning of October 5th, okay? Who was actually present in the home on that day?
So it was Paul Simon, Leilani Simon, Daniel Youngkin.
You have an objection, Your Honor, as to relevance. He's getting into his case in chief at a motion hearing as to the voluntariness of certain statements. I know exactly what he's doing in front of the camera.
If I may, Your Honor, this has nothing to do with the cameras. The court will remember that I've objected to every media request in this case. The very next thing that I'm going to get into is that it was the defendant who drew law enforcement to her residence by making a false report of a crime and representing this as a child abduction. Now that bears on voluntariness. It bears on voluntariness of her statements that day and all the ones that followed, is that she brought the police attention on herself to misrepresent what she had done. This is really not very far. This is not far afield at all.
Mr. Hilliard?
Your Honor, let's call him.
Okay, so here's the thing. They're not going to get too far in this line of questioning. It's about to switch up just a little bit, and the 911 call will be played very soon. I'm going to turn on closed captioning, but it's as loud as it goes. The audio is not excellent. So hopefully the closed captioning will help.
His conclusory statements as to what the evidence reflects, it doesn't have anything to do with the voluntariness of a statement. If Mr. Dean wants to sit here and say, She
Hey, Rob.
volunteered her house, she gave a statement, it was voluntary, that's fine. As far as the way he paints the evidence though, that's better made in closing statements after a trial, and that's not what we're here for.
Hey, Ash.
Mr. Dean, I tend to agree with the defense on this. Let's go straight into what the evidence is and proceed from there.
Okay. How did the police initially become involved with the disappearance of the son?
So we received a 911 call on October 5th, and the call was made by Daniel Youngkin and Leilani Simon.
Okay. What time was that 911 call?
It was at 9:38.
And this was on the morning of October 5th, right?
It was.
I had seen someone ask if Billy Joe was there, and I think that Claus may have answered in the chat, but I want to just say out loud for people who aren't watching chat or are curious about that, she did see her. Yes, she was there. And, I think we'll let her describe that actually. So as they're getting into it now, you see on the screen, the call was made by Daniel, and by his side was Leilani. So let's listen.
And you said it was made by Daniel Youngkin and Leilani Simon.
Yes, they're both heard on the 911 call.
Okay. And what was the nature of the call?
It was mainly Daniel speaking, but basically he was saying that they could not find their 21-year-old son and that the front door was open.
And the defendant herself could be heard on portions of that call as well. Is that right?
She can.
Okay. This has been introduced as State's Exhibit 1, Your Honor, and at this time I'm asked to publish this to the court.
And you have tendered 1 through 32. Is there any objection to those exhibits coming in?
Not for limited purposes of this hearing, Judge, no. So I understand the court has to look at them, hear them, see them. So as far as this hearing, no, Your Honor, no objection.
It would be for the limited purpose of this hearing.
Right, of
All
course.
right. Thank you, Mr. Dean.
May we now publish State's Exhibit 1?
Yes.
38:37 seconds, October 5, 2022. What's your emergency?
Yeah, I need to come 535 Buck Halter Road. We believe it's coming to get me.
535 Bullhauser?
Yeah.
And you said someone been kidnapped?
Yeah, we,
Your 1-year-old son? Yes. When was the last time you seen him?
I saw him this morning when I left at 6.
Okay, have you guys gone outside to check the area?
Yeah,
How old is he?
and he can't open the door.
So you think someone broke in? Has there been any signs of breaking in?
No. No breaking in, the door was open.
Was it unlocked?
Yeah, but the front door had bolts though, but yeah, it was.
Okay, give me a description of him. Give me a description.
He's, realized, like,
He's what now?
Dark brown hair, his eyes are like a brown green hazel.
Okay, and he's black, white, Hispanic.
Hawaiian.
He's what now?
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian?
Yes.
You can stop. You can stop. I think we stopped the playback somewhere around 2 minutes.
I'm just going to pause for a second. I am going to try to keep my commentary pretty brief because we got a lot to go through. An hour and 15 minutes. We're only 6 minutes in. That is absolutely infuriating. You hear her, the door's wide open and the playpen is empty. Danny says he cannot open the door. The door's wide open. They're reporting this as a possible kidnapping. It is infuriating to hear the sobbing, the wailing, and I don't know I can just see right through it. Maybe because I already know what happened, but people like her are the reason the death penalty exists. Yeah, I agree. Love you, and the labs are always great. Love you back, Shauna. Thank you. And thank you for being a member for 9 months and for supporting me in all kinds of ways, Shauna. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's infuriating, you guys. All right, let's keep listening. It's really is kind of, I can't help it. I guess because we've done this deep dive into Letitia's mind, right? We've seen all of the jail files, every incident report. We've listened to her calls. We, even just what came out in court. A lot of Leilani's antics remind me of Letitia. They really do. The multiple different stories, I don't know, it just, I'll point out when times come up that she reminds me of her, but let's keep listening for now.
Now, she could be heard on that call saying, I can't find my child, please. Right?
Yes.
So she, at least for that phone call, she wanted the police to come to her house.
Yes.
Sometime after that phone call, did patrol officers respond?
They did.
And did they make contact with the defendant?
Yes.
Where did they make contact with the defendant?
So on the right side of the house is the main driveway, which the family kind of uses as their front entrance area. So the family was waiting there.
If we could please publish State's Exhibit 2. This is an excerpt from some body-worn camera footage of responding officers.
Okay, without objection, please proceed.
Yeah, you can take Marine 3 off the board. You can log out yesterday.
I woke up about 7 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 6, so we're doing 3-hour period. So that was front door is unlocked, and my son is not in his blanket.
The 3-year-old son's there, the daughter's there.
But my 1-year-old
He can't get out of the place by himself. He can't even open doors. Yeah, I left for work at 6 o'clock. She called me at 9 o'clock. And the front door was open, like I said, he's gone.
I can't find it.
And she said about 2 weeks ago, she told us that she's seen a car sitting out front about 2 weeks ago.
You can stop it there. 45 seconds.
Yeah.
So in this clip, we see that the defendant met the patrol officers in the driveway, right?
Yes.
Or she came to them.
Yes.
And they hardly had to ask her any kind of question at all. She just started talking. At some point, did detectives show up?
They did.
And who were the first detectives on scene for the Jeff County Police Department?
It was Detective Wilkins and Detective Miller.
And did they interview some of the people that were on scene?
They did.
The defendant,
Yes.
Daniel Youngkin,
Yes.
I think also Paul Simon, the brother.
I believe so.
Okay. Was that interview recorded?
Yes, it was.
How was it recorded?
So I think part of it was captured on the patrol officer's body cameras, and then the rest was on a handheld audio recording device.
Now,
I just want to pause and take a second. Many people are talking about Danny and his demeanor and that kind of thing. But part of me, Mr. Tomato Head, had said he thinks that Danny didn't believe her from the start, which is why he says he can't open the door. And I thought about that too for a second at that part of the call. I believe, at this point, if Danny was involved in any way, if there was any evidence of that, he would be arrested and charged as well. But I don't know. That's just kind of what I think about it. But let's keep listening.
those interviews, I'll just note for the court, are included, that interview is included as State's Exhibit 3 in the exhibits that have been admitted. Now, did they ask her, did she tell them when she had gone to bed and when she had woken up?
Yes.
Okay. Could we please publish State's Exhibit 3 starting at 2 minutes and 10 seconds in? or thereabouts. Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Where's your fiance? That's him? I'll be with you in just a second, sir. I'm just gonna ask you a few questions once I'm done with there, okay? All right. So when's the last time you saw your child?
When I went to bed last night.
And what time was that? Do
It
you
was
remember?
around 12.
12? Okay.
12 hours, but I had my wisdom teeth removed yesterday.
I'm sorry, that's it.
So I went to bed kind of late.
Also, one more thing I want to acknowledge, and we're going to keep listening. I don't want to interrupt. Danny also said that he saw him when he left for work. And remember, didn't he leave for work at like around 5 or 6? And then, the call was made several hours later. You got to correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while, but.
Listen, I had him up too.
So I got up this morning about 9.
About 9?
And my front door is open, so I went up and I shut it, not thinking about anything like that. And I look over and check on my kids, and he was gone. All the rest were there. He was gone.
It's all right. It's all right. Take some deep breaths. I'll start asking.
We stopped the playback at 2:57. So she spoke to Detective Wilkins willingly, right?
She did.
He didn't have to force anything out of her.
No.
And she told him that she would come to bed at midnight. Is that
Yes.
right? Or around midnight?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did officers on scene? Well, let me ask you this: did she have a car at this time?
She did.
What type of car?
It is a Dodge Journey.
At some point, did officers on scene become aware that that car had been out driving around at a period in the early morning hours of October 5th? It was after the time that she said she had gone to bed.
Yes.
Can you tell us how that played out?
So the initial officers, including the lieutenant, this time Lieutenant Foster, relayed information about what was going on at the scene, such as the vehicle's tag numbers. Those tag numbers were taken by one of the detectives, still at the office, Detective Robbins, and she ran them in the block camera system and saw that the vehicles were moving beyond what Ms. Leilani initially said.
Specifically the journey, right?
Yes.
Now, what is the flock camera system?
Yeah, it's I believe it's like a neighborhood camera system. It basically will take a photograph of a vehicle's license plate as it passes by the camera, stored for law enforcement to later look at.
You can search it by tag.
We can.
Okay. Now, did that information get back to Foster that car had been out in the early morning hours of
Yes.
October 5th?
Yeah, at this point in time, I'm going to object again. We seem to be getting far afield from a voluntariness.
Oh, they don't there's quite a lot of evidence getting out, things getting known that weren't known before. So there is a neighborhood camera system that saw the cars moving at the time where Leilani claimed, she was knocked out or whatever. That's interesting. Let's keep listening. Which we knew some of that, like I believe there was cameras right at the dumpster as well, that we knew there was a camera there or something. I'm still a little fuzzy. You guys, again, correct me if I'm wrong.
Question here in regard to evidence in which to submit a trial. So I don't really see the relevance of any of this. Again, I'll just lodge the objection.
Mr. Dean.
Your Honor, my very next question is going to be, did Lieutenant Foster go and talk to her about that?
Okay,
Did you ask her a question, and did she answer it?
let's go there.
What does that look like? All of this bears directly on voluntariness.
Okay.
And I understand they're not trying to suppress that statement. I understand that. But the voluntariness of her statements that day, to contextualize what brought her into the police department and how she was receptive of police questioning, I do think it is important to look at what kicked this investigation off, that she was answering questions willingly on scene and in fact brought the police to her.
Okay, Mr. Hilliard.
No, when it comes to questions of voluntariness, the question of voluntariness is simple. Was it a voluntary encounter between the police and the defendant? The context of that encounter is irrelevant. If the defendant is brought to that encounter in handcuffs or not free to leave, then it makes it a custodial encounter. Just that simple. We don't need to know what they had for lunch. We don't need to know whether or not their car worked. We don't need to know who lived in the house. We just need to know the context of that particular encounter.
Look at Leilani. Can't even see her face.
Thank you. I'm going to sustain the objection.
Your Honor, may I respond to
You may.
that? I think that argument gets it exactly wrong. I think what the cases say is that the voluntariness inquiry, not the custody inquiry, not the Miranda inquiry, but the voluntariness inquiry, in fact, does depend on what the totality of the circumstances. These are circumstances. Totality is essentially everything. What all led up to the interview is relevant. So I would now like to publish this brief exchange between Lieutenant Foster and the defendant.
And I'm going to allow you to do that. I do want you to more limit the testimony that you're eliciting at this time.
So he's saying, look, I need to show all of this because I need to show that she was giving up this information on her own. She wanted to. She was voluntarily giving information.
If we could please publish State's Exhibit 4.
That basis for sale. They just got it. Did y'all go anywhere last night or yesterday with Greg? That maybe he could have followed you or something? Y'all didn't go anywhere? No, I'm just, you yourself.
Yeah, I know, I could have got my food yesterday, so I went to the order, you know, that was it.
2 o'clock yesterday afternoon?
No, like morning, rise, I couldn't go sleep.
Okay, so where'd you go?
Right up the road, right there, that Chevron. I met my friend that I used to work with, she had ordered up there, and I asked her, okay, when I called.
Okay. Did you go anywhere else that we maybe been home? So when did you get home?
We have,
Was it even 2? I was on 1.5.
1:25?
So I was out there literally 12.
And you went where?
Right up the road to next to that Chevron.
Oh, before you, over here on the, right here on
Right
the.
up the road, same story of little Daniels, I had a girl named Misty that,
I got borrow her for the canine.
Okay, give me just a second.
Yeah.
I had a girl named Misty that used to work with that dental department as well, so I got in contact with her and asked her if she had 4 to go. I called several days, and they didn't have it.
There we go, unsupervised maniacs. She went to see if Misty had Oragel.
Okay, did you notice anybody following you or anything? Did you go back out at all, lady, kind of the car?
When I did get back, there was a car, which is why that lady mentioned it, whatever. I was thinking that maybe the car was for people across the street, but it was another little gray car sitting up front of the house.
Okay.
So I was thinking it was for a car across the street, one of the neighbors. So I don't know.
So you said you got home about 1:30?
Yes, it's 1:25 a.m. the exact time that I arrived home. I was on for someone's phone.
Okay, all right. So nobody followed me, right? Kind of boss.
They're just gonna ask you about.
So she had initially reported this as a child abduction, right?
Yes.
And Foster became aware that her car was out driving around in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And he went to ask her about that.
Yes.
But he was questioning her about it in the context of the reported child abduction. Could anybody have followed you when you went on that trip?
Yes.
And she answered those questions willingly, right?
She did.
Sounded like he was treating her as a potential victim of a crime. Is that fair?
Yes.
Now, at some point, was a decision made to interview the defendant, Daniel Youngkin and Paul Simon at Chatham County Police Headquarters?
Yes, we wanted to take everyone that was at the residence during the last 2 days to the precinct for more detailed interviews.
And how was that decision made? Who was involved in that decision?
Yeah, so I had arrived on scene around this time and I received a phone call from Agent Brad Snyder, and he wanted to volunteer his team services to search for Quentin as well. He suggested that we all rendezvous at the headquarters, which is 295 Police Memorial, and speak with everyone who was at the residence.
And was that desire of law enforcement to talk to all these people in a more kind of deliberate fashion communicated to those three, the defendant, Danny, and Paul?
Yes,
Who communicated that to them?
I believe Detective Wilkins and Detective Noble notified them.
And did the three of them agree to come in and do that?
They did?
Did they voice any objection?
No.
Was that interaction between Wilkins and Noble and those three captured on body worn camera?
It was.
Your Honor, this is in our exhibits in State's Exhibit 5, if we can now publish that, please.
Okay, yeah, you may do so.
All right, so this is the plan. In the states bringing the FBI involved, and they've agreed to meet us at the annex, and we're going to interview all three of us are going to do interviews. Okay. Do you have a seat for that? Yeah, for it. You have a car seat that they're latched into?
Yeah, I don't think I know where it's at, but. Can y'all see that little slot there?
That doesn't click in?
We have one, I just don't know where it's at. The part that clicks in, it's attached.
Alright, level.
This part right here, that
Does
clicks
the seat supposed to go in? How do you guys travel with the child?
in. You can do it this way, or you can have the part where it's not, so you put them in just like this, and that's why it has these straps here.
Would you be able to do it like in the SUVs?
Because we have unmarked SUVs that are regular, normal SUVs, so would you be able to strap your child with one of our?
Yeah, as long as the regular seat.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like it's fine, it doesn't have to have the bottom part on the car, so it doesn't have to have that part.
We're just
It
making
just
sure.
makes
that
it easier when
she can be- yeah, that's all. So that's the plan, okay? We're just checking boxes right now, okay? Because the FBI is going to lend us resources, so once we get them involved, kind of we're at their win, you know what I'm saying? So they want to talk to everybody. So basically all that we've already talked about already, okay? I know it's a lot, it's going to get emotional again, okay? But it's just, they already have a dog looking at you. Yeah, dog already. Okay? So again, it's just more stuff to help you, all right? So if you all just want to come with us, all right? Paul, you ride with me.
Do you want to stay with me so I can get my side?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it when we was up
Yeah,
there.
you can get a drink. You want to walk with him? Yeah. And then I'll walk with Paul to get this one. Want to just watch her real quick? Yep.
The dog's gonna be inside. These two do. That one does and that one does.
All right, so Paul and the defendant have what appear to be like overnight bags.
Yes.
Danny's walking out with a drink in each hand.
Yes.
Defendant's got her baby, and they're talking about how they're gonna get the baby fastened in the car.
Yes.
Right? Did the baby end up going to the police station or not?
No.
What happened to the baby?
I believe either Leilani's family that had arrived on the scene or maybe the babysitter had taken stuff.
And who transported the defendant specifically to police headquarters?
Detective Noble.
What kind of car did he take her
He's in a unmarked Explorer.
Okay, so no police markings on the outside?
No.
Any light bar on top?
No.
What's the back seat like? Is it the hard plastic deal that
No.
arrestees get transported in?
No, it's just like the normal cushioned taxis.
Okay. Regular SUV?
Mhm.
Okay. She wasn't handcuffed or anything, right?
She was not.
At this point, she was not really a suspect or anything.
No.
When did you arrive at the Chatham County Police Department in relation to the defendant that day?
Yeah, so I had an additional interview to do before I arrived at the precinct, but it was shortly after 12, I believe.
Okay. And did you link up with the defendant when you got there?
Yes.
Where was she when you first encountered her?
So it's a spare room that we have that's also serves as the lactation room for our precinct.
Okay. Is it an interview room?
It's not.
What type of room? I mean, I know you said it's a lactation room. But can you describe the room? What's it like?
Yeah, it's got a TV inside, there's 2 couches, a cooler, and magazines and coffee tables.
Fair to say, like a lounge essentially?
Yes,
And that's where she was when you got there?
yes.
Where were the other two?
So Daniel Youngkin was in our main interview room, and we only have one at that precinct, and then Paul was in our conference room.
Who was present for law enforcement to conduct the interviews at this point? Because there are 3 people that need to be interviewed, right?
Yes.
And who was there to do these interviews?
So the main case team became myself, Detective Noble, and Detective Wilkins with Chatham Police. And then with the FBI, we had Special Agent Brett Snyder, Savannah Solomon, and Taylor Burns.
Did you all come up with a plan as to who was going to interview who?
Yes.
And what was that breakdown?
So Agent Snyder and I kind of became the leads for both of our departments, and decided to speak with Leilani first, because she was the one who had the most knowledge of the immediate acts.
Because she was there.
Yes.
When the alleged abduction
Yes.
occurred. Albeit a sleep recording, huh?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and Special Agent Snyder interview her?
We did.
Where did a couple of times that day, right?
Yes.
Or maybe more than a couple, maybe like a few.
Yeah.
Where did the first interview take place?
In that lactation room.
Why in the lactation room as opposed to the interview room?
Because Daniel was being interviewed in the interview room. It
Okay.
was a simultaneous interviews.
Is the lactation room outfitted with, an integrated camera or anything like that? for
Yeah.
recording? Did you record this first interview in the lactation room?
I did.
And how did you do that?
I did a video on my work cell.
Now, is that an ideal way to record an interview?
It's,
Why do you say that?
for one, it's hard to prop up, and then it's something you have to worry about. You get phone calls, and it's just another device that could go wrong.
And in fact, at some point, your phone is like trained on ceiling tiles for an extended period of time. right?
Yes, I believe I just set it on the coffee table.
Okay. How many videos on your phone did it take to memorialize this first interview in the lactation room?
2.
Why 2 instead of just 1?
I received a phone call about 20, 30 minutes into the conversation.
And what did you have to do with that?
The video stopped recording, but I also needed to take the phone call.
Okay. And did you do that?
I did.
And did you then come back in and start another video?
I did.
Okay. So that first, what we're calling the first interview is in our.
So basically, Leilani, Danny, and Paul were all at the police station being interviewed. So Leilani's interview had to take place in the lactation room. It doesn't have the usual camera set up. However, she still recorded it. And yeah, just wanted to, let's see. Jen says this is important testimony about the interviews. This is pretty standard procedure in these types of cases. Give insight into what likely has occurred with the Proudfoots. Interesting, Bindi. Tiffany says, I've been trying to silently watch today so I don't end up spamming chat because of how much Leilani makes my blood boil. I know a lot of you guys feel that way. All right. I'm trying not to pause a lot. I have a lot to say, of course, I always do, but I know that many of you guys want to actually hear what's going on. So
Exhibit says States Exhibit 6 and States Exhibit 7. Can you briefly describe, well, actually tell me this, about how long was that first interview, the lactation room interview?
In total, it was probably around 40 to an hour.
Okay. And what was, I understand that's a long time to summarize, but briefly, what was the substance of that particular interview?
Yeah, so this was Special Agent Snyder's and I's first conversation with Leilani, so we wanted to hear it from her, the timeline of what's happened the last few days, as well as some family history, and just any other possibility of what happened to Blake.
Okay. And did she provide a timeline to you?
She did.
Were there any raised voices or anything like that in this interview?
No.
Were you all at least kind of playing along with the abduction story at this point
Yes.
and treating her as a potential victim of a crime?
Yes.
How did this interview end, this particular iteration of the October 5 interviews?
She gave consent for her cell phone to be extracted, so we obtained the cell phone and started the extraction.
And did you have to leave the room to do that?
We did.
So who did that extraction?
It was our forensics team, which is also at that same precinct.
Now, were you able to at least do a kind of a cursory review of the phone extraction before you went in to talk to her again?
Yes,
And did you see anything in the phone extraction that caused you to want to go talk to her?
yes.
Can you briefly tell us what that was?
So it was a text message about Miss Leilani. I think it said turning onto Highway 204, which was a different timeline than what she previously given.
From about what time was that text message?
I believe it was around 10:30.
And in the first interview, has she said anything to you all about going anywhere in that time of night?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you go in and talk to her again?
We did,
And about how long was that interview?
about an hour.
Okay. And now where did this one take place?
This time it was moved to our main interview room.
Okay. And why was that?
It's just the best area to do an interview.
Is it simply because the interview room was now available,
Yes,
whereas it had not been available for the first one?
yes.
Okay. And who conducted this one? Was it you and Special Agent Snyder again?
It was.
And could you briefly describe the substance of this interview?
So at this point, after finding the text message, we wanted to get some more.
Just want to say, here we are again, another example of the lies that she told. They find a text message with a different timeline, just turning onto whatever highway. I can't recall exactly what she said, but here we have yet another version of events.
Information about her whereabouts and what this trip on 204 was.
Now, this interview is in the state's exhibits as State's Exhibit 8. Sometime, how did that particular interview end, I guess? How did that one wrap up?
I believe Agent Snyder and I wanted to speak with each other outside the room, so just had Miss Leilani wait.
Now, sometime after that, but between your next interview, you took her out to smoke a cigarette?
I did.
And that was recorded on the interview room camera, right?
Yes.
Okay. If we could please publish State's Exhibit 9.
Please do.
So you asked her if she needed to smoke. She said yes, and the two of y'all walked out together.
We did.
Now you audio recorded the two of you smoking a cigarette outside, right?
I did.
And that, Your Honor, is in our exhibits at State's Exhibit 10. It looked, in that video, did she have a patrol officer sitting with her?
She did.
Okay. Did she and the others have patrol officers monitoring them essentially throughout that day
Yes.
at the precinct? Let me ask you why that is.
So this part of the precinct that we're all in is secured. It's not open to civilians or the public just coming in. So we had several patrol officers monitoring all the parties that we had there.
Okay. Now, if you walk into the front door of the precinct, how do you get to the secure, restricted area that you're describing?
Yeah, you'll see two windows over to the right as you go to the front door, but you actually have to scan a key card in order to get into the main building area. So Daniel's in one part and she's in the other side of the security door.
All right. So the whole area that they're in is somewhere past the lobby.
Yes.
And why do people need to be escorted or chaperoned?
We have our property in that side of the precinct, as well as the forensics office. We have different patrol officers' offices, and our dispatch is just a secure area with sensitive information. We don't want anyone just wandering in.
I've been back there before, right?
You have.
And I was escorted
You
by
were.
police officers.
Yes.
Okay. Now, where did y'all go to smoke this cigarette?
In the back parking lot, it's where employees park. It's a fenced-in area.
And what were y'all doing? Just standing, sitting?
I think we sat on the curb with a cigarette.
smoked a cigarette and made small talk?
We did.
Sometime after this, did you and the investigative team decide that it would be desirable to get written statements from these three people?
Yes,
And did you ask the defendant to provide a written statement?
we did.
And did she agree to do that?
She did.
You guys go in there and kind of give her instructions on what level of detail should be included?
Yes,
And did she proceed to write a written statement?
she did.
Okay. Your Honor, that is in our exhibits as State's Exhibit 11. Now, all throughout this, first interview, the second interview, talking to her about doing this written statement, what sort of tone are you all thinking?
Very casual. At this point, we're just collecting as much information as possible, relaying it to every party that needs to know.
Was it at all accusatory?
Not at this point.
Was anybody raising voices or anything like that?
No.
The written statement itself is included at State's Exhibit 12. Now, after the three written statements were done, what did you all as the investigative team do with them?
So we all reviewed them as a team and spoke with some experts that the FBI had access to kind of discuss the next steps.
You were comparing them to each other,
Yes.
and I suppose with what the writer had actually said in interviews to that point.
Yes.
And while y'all were doing that, she was in the interview room with Officer Carlson, right?
I believe so.
And at some point when she was in there, she sort of opened up to Officer Carlson about some of her mental health issues. Is that right?
Yes.
And this is information that she essentially volunteered, correct?
It is.
And I won't, I suppose because of some of the objections that have been raised at this point, I won't publish that part. But let me just say, it starts with her saying to Carlson something like, this whole thing will be easier if they come back in so I have someone to talk to.
Yes.
Something along those lines.
Yes.
And if you watch that, if the court watches it, the court will see that she would rather talk to you all than not.
Yes.
That's sort of the sense that you get.
So at the time, she tells police, oh, if someone was here and I had someone to talk to, it'd be easier. If the police would just come back in here and I had someone to talk to, it'd be easier. And then now she's wanting to throw out all the times that she wanted to talk. I'm glad they're bringing up these points because it's important.
Sometime shortly thereafter, she got a visit from Danny in the interview room. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. If we could please publish State's Exhibit 14.
Okay, so the last one was,
State's Exhibit 13, I have in the exhibit list as disclosure to Officer Samantha Carlson with the time at which that occurred.
okay, so we're moving now to 14. Okay, you may proceed.
Yeah, cheeseburger and you not comfortable with.
That was Paul telling her at the beginning that she has food on the way.
I believe so.
Okay, good.
I know.
All right, you can stop the playback at 46 seconds into that file. Okay, so she's
Let me just pause for a moment to say thank you, Claus, for gifting those memberships. I appreciate that so much. And welcome to the members. That was really sweet. Oh, Beach Lover, you just said you wanted to be green. And then look, you got green. Thank you. And then Kat, hello. Thank you for being here. And I was about to put it in chat, but let me take that off. It's a detective testifying. And then the other thing I want to say is listen to her tears. How do you, oh God, it just makes me sick. Riddler, thank you. Super awesome channel, Alex. You always be number one in my heart. Thank you for your superior sustained coverage and reporting. Thank you, Riddler. That is very sweet, and I appreciate that. And I hope you are doing well, and I hope Mom's doing well too. Thank you, guys. All right, let's keep listening. I do have some things I want to, like I said, I want to let Claus come up to explain what it was like being there, and there was a couple little things that she told me that I think are interesting that we will touch on. And then I want to show you something at the end as well. So just hold tight. Let's keep listening. And yeah, I'm going to keep trying not to interrupt a lot. It's so hard because I want to pause like often and I'm really holding back. So
He's not being held incommunicado or anything like that, right?
No.
Paul's talking to her from the hallway.
Mhm.
Danny's coming in to see her. Talking about how you took her out for a cigarette.
Yes.
And sometime shortly after that visit from Danny, she showed herself out for the cigarette,
She did.
right? And asked Officer Carlson if she wanted to come with her or something along those lines.
Yes.
If we could publish State's Exhibit 15, please.
Okay, please proceed.
Do you have a jacket on you? I was talking about for you. So you gonna step out there with me while I smoke my cigarette? Is that freezing you there? It feels like somebody's.
So she wants to leave, she can leave, and she seems to know that.
Yes.
Sometime after that, you and Snyder interviewed her again in what I'm calling at State's Exhibit 16, CCPD Interview 3, right?
Yes.
And about how long was this?
About an hour.
What were y'all talking to her about this time?
So at this point, we had a confirmation that the child's father was at work during the time frame that we had. And at this point, we wanted to have more conversations about this timeline and what could happen.
Okay. I'm not sure we played all that, but is there a point, at least in the initial police response, and maybe in some of your earlier
remember, she tried to blame him too.
interviews, where she appeared to be trying to cast suspicion on Clinton's father as a potential abductor?
Yes.
And you're saying you now have information that could be the case?
Yes.
And that is what prompted what we're calling the third interview. What was the substance of that interview? What did you ask her what she said?
So we laid it out to her that Henry was not involved and that something else must have happened because through her own admission, Quentin couldn't have gotten out of his carrier himself. So that leaves another unknown possibility.
Was there any yelling or screaming in this interview?
There was not.
Any pounding of the table?
No.
Fair to say it was more like a kind of a pleading tone that y'all were taking with us? Please tell us what happened.
Yes.
We've talked about this a little bit, that she was not in the interview room continuously during this, fairly long day, right?
Yes.
At one point, she was moved to a conference room.
Yes, it was.
And what was the purpose of that?
Just so we could use the main interview room for the initial interview with Daniel.
Okay, so there's going to be a follow-up interview with Danny that was going to take place in the interview room, so she had to leave.
Yes.
If we could please place State's Exhibits 17 and 18 in succession. These are the defendant being moved out, and the defendant being moved back in.
Okay, so it's too bad we can't see. The defendant being moved out and moved back in. We'll just.
It's a medium-sized kind of business-looking room. It has a very large table in the center and a TV.
What kind of chairs?
The rolling lounge chairs, like the desk chairs.
Now, I understand that this is a police station, But is it fair to say that the conference room is like any conference room in any office?
Yes.
Okay. Now, sometime after that, you and Special Agent Snyder had your fourth and final interview in the defendant.
Yes.
And that rolled just past midnight into October 6th.
Yes.
What were you all doing with that fourth interview? What was the purpose of that?
Again, trying to get information from her about the movements, where she went, just really, at that point, it was probably going to be our final interview of the night, so we wanted to nail down a firm timeline.
And it was understood by everybody throughout this whole day that all three of them were leaving at the end of the night, right?
It was.
It was just a question of where they were going to stay, whether they could go back to the house, given that it was being searched and so on, right?
Yes.
And periodically throughout the night, we were talking about that. Where are you going to go? Where do you want to stay? Where might be a good place?
Yes.
Not just among each other, but with the defendant specifically, right?
Yes, we were planning, depending on how long the search was going to be, whether or not we needed to get a hotel room for her, or if she had a family member that would maybe take her and her family in.
So all along she knew she was leaving.
She did.
Gonna get her a hotel room.
Can you briefly describe the substance of that fourth interview?
So this last one, she again told us her timeline of events that night. We narrowed down exactly.
Okay, so just to pause, if you couldn't hear him very well because he's kind of muffled, he wants her to describe the substance of the fourth interview. They're now discussing the fourth interview in what I think this is the last one, but let me play.
Who she met with and where she went.
Let me see.
And then we again asked her if there was any.
Can you briefly describe the substance of that fourth interview?
So this last one, she again told us her timeline of events that night. We narrowed down exactly who she met with and where she went. And then we again asked her if there was anything else that we needed to know about what happened.
And is it fair to say that this fourth interview was maybe, I guess, a little more accusatory at times than some of the previous ones?
It was.
But still, was there yelling, was there screaming, was there pounding in the table?
No.
How did this day wrap up? I mean, at some point, it's time to leave, right?
Yeah, so after the final interview, the case team started to meet to discuss the next steps of the following days, what we were going to do, as well as whether or not the search team had finished at her residence.
Okay. And during the period of time, who was going to train? How are they going to get back to wherever it was that they were going?
And that's what we were working on at the time, just whether or not somebody from the case team could do it or a patrol officer.
And where were the three of the defendant all in meeting at this point?
We moved them all to one room, the empty room.
Okay. And was the camera still running?
It was.
Okay. At some point, while the camera was running in there, you all were talking about where they were going to go, who was going to take them. Was there an exchange between the defendant and Paul about drugs?
It was.
Can you tell us about that exchange, please?
They discussed whether or not Paul had weed.
Okay. And who was asking that question?
Leilani.
If we could please publish State's Exhibit 20.
Please proceed.
Right, it's pretty quiet there, but could you tell us what it was that what they said?
Yeah, so Leilani asked Paul if he has weed, and he responds that he has 5 something.
Let's hear that again. So Leilani asking Paul if he has any weed. This is what she's worried about. Okay? This is what Leilani's concerned about. Let me see if we can hear that again because it's a whisper. Okay? Let's see.
Between the defendant and Paul about drugs.
There was.
Can you tell us about that exchange, please?
They discussed whether or not Paul had weed.
Okay. And who was asking that question?
Leilani.
If we could please publish State's Exhibit 20.
Please proceed.
But it's pretty quiet there, but could you tell us what it was that what they said?
Yeah, so Leilani asked Paul if he has weed, and he responds that he has 5 of something. That's it.
I couldn't hear it. Like I think I could hear the word pot. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's so quiet, but they're describing what is being said to us, and that is Leilani asking Paul if he has any weed, and he said he's got 5 of something. Unsupervised, I give her props for not snatching her by her. I know. Hydro. Is that what she said? Or wait a minute. Okay, let me just keep playing. Said I think so. I'm gonna have to listen to it with headphones turned up really loud and try to hear it again. But again, that's what she's worried about. It's pretty frustrating. It really is. And you guys know I truly believe that marijuana has medicinal benefits that can help so many people. And I think that it's so very different from pharmaceuticals and what big pharma tries to push on us all the time, right? Not to go down another road that has nothing to do with this. I'm just saying that is my stance on marijuana. But why do you care about anything else other than finding your baby? I don't understand that. I mean, I guess when you know that he's where he's at, then that's why, but it's just frustrating. Amber, she probably wanted it for stress. She caused. It was weed, Alex. Okay, she said weed. Yeah, I couldn't hear it at all then.
Seems pretty lighthearted, right?
It does.
Now, where did they go? I don't know whether you mentioned this already. Where did they go that night and how did they get there?
We finished up at the residence shortly before we were ready to transport them somewhere. So they just went back to the residence.
I want to ask you a couple questions about, a few more questions about October 5th before we move on. Okay, I guess into October 6th. Does that interview room door lock?
Not to my knowledge.
All right. Was it closed continuously during the period of time she was in there?
No, it's open the majority of the time.
Okay. We've already talked about the chaperone / escort issues. I don't want to ask you any more on that. We saw that she was brought food, right?
Yes.
2 separate times.
Yes.
The first time it was the bag of chips and the drink that you see on the table in some of those clips.
Yes.
And the second time it was a full meal from McDonald's.
Yes.
And she was allowed to eat that.
Yes.
Was she ever handcuffed at any point that day?
No.
She ever shackled to a wall?
No.
Was she ever subjected to any physical force whatsoever?
No.
Making the point that she could eat, she was given, McDonald's, she was able to go smoke, she knew that she could leave whenever she wanted. That's the point of these questions. Now, let me stop. We have about 30 minutes, a little bit less than 30 minutes, 29 minutes left. So let's try to get through it. And then, we'll keep going with what we planned.
Did anybody ever threaten anything like that?
No.
Did anybody ever threaten or insinuate any non-physical harm, like getting her fired from her job or taking her kids away?
No.
If she, she didn't tell you what you wanted to hear, keep talking.
Yeah, no.
Did anybody ever promise her anything? Specifically, I'm talking about reduced charges or anything like that if she told you the truth and continued to talk to you?
No.
Anything like that whatsoever?
No.
Is it fair to say that all along that day she was holding herself out as the victim of a child abduction who wanted to help police find her child?
Yes.
And for the most part, y'all sort of played along with that despite your developing suspicions.
Yes.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about your goals that day as an investigative team. At any point on October 5th and into October 6th, did y'all know where Quentin was?
We did not.
Did you know whether he was injured or uninjured?
We did.
Did you know whether he was alive or dead?
We did.
Is it fair to say then that ultimately, at the end of the day, all of your questioning of all these people on October 5th into October 6th was geared towards figuring out where he was, whether he was okay, and finding him.
Yes.
Now, her next interview was on October 8th, right?
Yes.
I want to ask you, just so we can kind of contextualize this interview in the context of the investigation, okay? There had been, well, let me ask you this. There were a lot of law enforcement officers doing a lot of different things.
Very well.
Okay. But there were two significant investigative developments in the interim between the interviews we just talked about and the October 8th, right?
Yes.
One is that law enforcement had interviewed this Misty person that the defendant said she was picking up Orajel from at 1:32 in the morning.
Yes, Agent Snyder did.
I'm going to object again. We're getting back into the narrative, and Mr. Dean is testifying and leading the witness. I understand he's trying to speed things up, but the reality of it is, we're here for very limited purposes today in this motion hearing. You don't need the backstory or the proselytizing or the setup. It's just whether or not it was a voluntary statement that was given. I just don't see how this is relevant. I mean, that's my version.
Thank you. Mr. Dean, I'm going to sustain Mr. Hilliard's objection.
Where was she interviewed on October 8th?
At the FBI's Savannah headquarters.
And who conducted that interview?
Agent Bridget Brock.
And where does she work?
She works with the FBI.
Specifically, what office or division or what have you?
I think she's in the behavioral analyst unit.
Okay. How was that arranged with the defendant?
We asked her to come in for an additional interview and a case update. She and Daniel.
How did she get there?
So at that time, we still had Ms. Leilani's vehicle, so she needed transportation. It was easiest because the FBI is a.
Again, I believe just making the point that she voluntarily did these came to these interviews, that kind of thing.
Address. So we transported her.
Okay. The two of them together, the defendant and Danny?
Yes.
Did they ride there in the same car?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. About how long was she at the FBI office in the title of that day?
Probably about 2 hours.
And where did she go afterwards?
I brought her back to the hotel.
Okay. Was there ever any question among you or the defendant that she was coming in and was going to be leaving that day?
Can you say that again?
Was there ever any confusion between you or the defendant about whether she was going to be leaving that day? Okay. And this was purely voluntary. She agreed to it.
She did.
What was Bridget Brock's, Special Agent Brock's, tone like during this interview? Well, actually, let me back up. Did you see it?
I did.
Okay. How were you watching this interview?
Like our precinct, the FBI's office has live streaming capabilities with their video equipment.
Okay. So you're watching this thing, isn't it?
I did.
How would you describe Bridget Brock's, Special Agent Brock's tone throughout this interview?
Very calm. Even when she was asking difficult questions, she did so almost in a motherly fashion.
Okay. Did she ever raise her voice?
She did.
Did she ever use physical force or make any threats thereof?
She did.
Any promises of leniency?
No.
Now, she did Mirandize the defendant, right?
She did.
At the outset of their interaction.
Yes.
But that was, fair to say that was as a matter of policy or out of an abundance of caution?
To my knowledge, yes.
Not because the defendant was in custody?
No.
The rights advisement is in State's Exhibit 21, and the interview video itself is in State's Exhibit 22. Now, you said you transported her back to the hotel, right?
I did.
Was it just her, or was it her and Danny?
Just her.
Why wasn't Danny?
So, like on the first day, we did simultaneous interviews. So we had one with Leilani, and we had one with Daniel, the two different interviewers. Daniel was still in the interview.
Okay. And the defendant wanted to leave?
She did.
And so you made that happen? You audio recorded that drive, correct?
I did.
And And that audio recording is in State's Exhibit 23.
So Leilani wanted to leave, and she took her back to the hotel. Also, you guys, I've been reading every comment. Usually I like to pull them up on the screen, but the closed captioning, I don't know, I can't move it on Court TV like the same way you can move it on YouTube. So I'm trying not to pull them up just so that you guys can see the closed captioning.
What was the mood like between the two of you in the car afterwards?
It was again casual, and the hotel was just a brief trip down the road.
Okay. On October 9th, the day after the interview we've just been talking about, did the defendant reach out and initiate contact with one of the FBI agents on this case?
Yes, with Agent Solomon.
Okay. Savannah Solomon?
Yes.
All right. And Agent Solomon wrote a report memorializing that, correct?
She did.
All right. And this is in evidence of State's Exhibit 24, Your Honor. If we could publish the report, and I'd like to have you read it.
So they're going to read the report from this FBI officer who Leilani reached out to, initiated contact with.
First two paragraphs of it.
Wait.
You may proceed.
So it says on 10/9/2022, Ryder answered a phone call from 912-704-0521, a phone number used by Billy Joe Howell. Upon the call connecting, the caller identified herself as Leilani. Simon asked questions about the day's search. Later on the same day, Ryder spoke with Leilani Simon in person in her residence driveway. In the course of the conversation, Simon volunteered her new phone number, her new cell phone number, 912-465-0275.
Thank you. You can close that.
So Leilani reached out to the FBI officer inquiring about the search. Now, to me, I feel like I would do that all the time. So I don't, I'm not making a point either way what that means. Now that we know that she knew exactly where he was and how it ended, we can inquire why she may have been doing that. But I'm just saying I would be calling every day. Let me just stop because I have a lot of my own thoughts and speculation. I should just probably leave out and let's keep listening. But that's what's going on.
Now, when was her next interview with law enforcement?
I believe it was on the 12th.
Okay. Of October?
Yes,
Where was that interview conducted?
it was at the FBI headquarters.
And who conducted that interview?
That was Agent Solomon and Agent Snyder.
What type of room was that conducted in?
I think it was their version of a conference room, but I think it also had kind of the storage space area.
How does it relate in appearance and I guess austerity to the interview room that she was interviewed in at CCPD on October 5th?
It's the same deal, it's just a larger room.
And how she got to that interview?
I believe her brother drove her to that interview.
And did he drive her home or wherever it was that she was staying at the end?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how it was arranged with the defendant?
Again,
That she was going to come in for another
for
interview?
another update.
Okay. For another update?
Yes.
Okay. And did she sit down and willingly talk to these two agents for a period of time when she was there? And was that video and audio recorded?
It was.
All right, and that is in the State's Exhibit 25. Again, some questions on voluntariness. Were there any raised voices in this interview?
There wasn't.
Was there any physical force or threats thereof?
No.
Wasn't especially long, right?
No.
And were there any promises of leniency or anything like that?
There wasn't.
Okay. In fact, have you all as the investigative team gotten some advice from the FBI's behavioral analysis unit on how to deal with the defendant?
Yes.
And can you tell us?
Objection, Your Honor, relevant.
Mr. Dean?
I think the relevance will be apparent when the witness answers the question.
That's not quite how that works, Judge.
Okay.
Unless I hear something else, it's sustained.
Had the behavioral analysis unit given you all advice specifically regarding or gentle, you all should be with the defendant during any subsequent interviews?
They did.
All right. And what was that advice?
They said the best.
Objection, I mean, you sustained that objection.
Sustained, Mr. Dean.
Okay. What was their tone like in that October 12th interview?
It was very calm, again, casual, even when they were asking for questions.
Just a quick thing. Curious. How do you guys feel about this judge? I kind of like her. I think she's being pretty fair. She is, trying to work with both sides and keep it fair, which I think that's always better than, leaning towards one side or the other. But I'm curious what you guys think.
And was there any specific reason why they chose to take a calm, casual tone?
Because it was the best approach based on the previous interactions we had.
Mr. Dean, I'm going to ask you to stay away from the characterizations. I don't think they are relevant at this time.
Okay. If I may just place our position on the record,
Please.
Okay. As to the voluntary disclosure, these people have been advised, they have been specifically advised to be gentle with the defendant, to be non-confrontational, not to raise their voices. And they were complying with that tactical guidance they had gotten.
So he says police had tactical guidance to be calm with Leilani. Don't raise your voice, kind of my words, don't be argumentative or threatening or intimidating. That was a tactic, to get her to cooperate and talk to him, right? But just interesting, and I wanted to point that out. Okay, let's keep listening. I'm going to mute because whoever's Owen or whatever.
That's why I tried to put it.
Thank you. If you just move on.
Now, that interview was on October 12th, right?
Yes.
And you talked about the tone of it, and she left with her brother afterwards.
Yes.
Sometime after that, in late October, did the defendant do an interview with a local news outlet?
She did.
And that is in our exhibits, Your Honor, States Exhibit 26. If we could please publish that.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us for the News at 11. I'm Dawn Baker. Leilani Simon, the mother of missing Chatham County toddler Quentin Simon, talked to WTOC today for the first time since he was reported missing nearly 3 weeks ago. Chatham County Police and the FBI believe Quentin is dead, and they are searching a local landfill for his remains. Police say Leilani is the only suspect in his disappearance and death. WTOC's Shay Schrader spoke exclusively to Leilani today.
I spoke with Leilani, Quentin's mother, about a number of things, including her status as the only suspect in her son's disappearance and what life has been like for her and her family in the 3 weeks since he was reported missing. I also spoke with her about what she remembers from that morning.
My kids woke up to me screaming, "Where's Quentin?" and running through the house. I ran and looked everywhere, inside, outside. She started screaming for help.
Leilani reported Quentin missing around 9 a.m. on the morning of October 5th. Since then, Chatham County Police and the FBI say they believe he's dead and are searching for his remains at a local landfill. Police say Leilani is the prime and only suspect in his disappearance and death, though she hasn't been charged with anything.
Can you guys hear me now? We're having a little technical difficulty. I got completely booted. I wasn't muted. I was booted. Don't know what's going on because no one's using the internet here, but now we're back. It looks like the internet's fine. I paused our spot. We were watching that news interview, which was so infuriating. Let me know if you can hear me. Oh, I promise I was. Accidentally muting. Okay, let's go right back to where we were. We're going to keep it pushing because we do have important conversation to have at the end of this. I look forward to it. And then I wanted to talk to you about a cold case of a young man who hasn't been seen since 1984, just for a second at the very end. So let's keep listening. Keep it moving. I apologize, you guys. Yeah, sorry.
Leilani and Billy tell me they're updating little Quentin's case mostly from watching the news. They spend their days waiting for a phone call with hopes there will be answers on the other end.
All we want is justice for Quentin Simon. That's it. We want justice too.
At whatever cost it is. We don't care the cost.
We want answers, just like everybody else. At the end of it all, we love you, baby Q. My little monkey, and we want to hold.
Chatham County Police and the FBI have been searching the landfill for Quentin's remains for around 1 week, but haven't announced any findings. Police also haven't announced any information about arrests or charges, but they do say that Leilani Simon is still their only suspect. We'll keep you updated as we learn more. Reporting in Chatham County, Shay Schrader, WTRC News.
Now, when that interview aired, did you or anybody else on the investigative team know that she was going to be doing a news interview?
We did not.
Is that a statement that you all asked her to make?
Uh-oh. A storm is coming in. Let me know if you guys can still hear me. I can always come in on the phone if I have too much trouble. So they did not know that she was doing that interview, right? They didn't ask her to. I'm assuming they didn't not ask her to, but let's keep listening.
Okay.
3:33.
She evidently did voluntarily.
Yes.
Later that day, the day that the news interview aired, that being October 24th, the defendant reached out to Special Agent Savannah Solomon with a news story. Is that right?
Yes.
And how did she reach out?
Wait. Let's hear that again.
Okay. Do you have a copy? Later that day, the day that the news interview aired, that being October 24th, the defendant reached out to Special Agent Savannah Solomon with a news story. Is that right?
Yes.
And how did she reach out?
So the day that interview aired, she reached out to FBI agent Savannah Solomon with a news story. What he said through text.
Okay. Do you have a copy of those text messages?
Not here.
Do you have it at this table?
I do. It's the,
Do you mind coming down and grabbing it? I don't.
Patricia. Oh no.
Are these text messages, Your Honor, are in evidence as State's Exhibit 27? What I'd like for you to do is read into the record the one that we were talking about, where the defendant reaches out to Solomon with his story.
So on October 24th, 2022 at 5:45 p.m., she reached out to Agent Solomon saying, "I'm not lying for Danny anymore. The reason why my story about border jail shit didn't make sense was because Danny told me to say that he was the one who left and my phone was in the car from my previous trip and his was on the charger. I was already smoking a blunt on the porch, and when I got done, Danny was already laying in the bed, all the lights were off, and I glanced at the kids as I was getting in the bed to go to sleep.
I'm not lying for Danny anymore.
That's why he took off. I'm innocent of this. He was the last one to see Quentin. He was the that texted the babysitter, and he was the that wasn't in bed when I woke for just a moment and it was still dark. And he was the one who the only set of keys.
Looking at those text messages, does it appear to you that Solomon elicited that text in any way?
No.
Did she ask her, hey, is there anything else you want to tell us?
No.
Does it appear that that statement came totally out of nowhere?
So a news story, not a news story. I heard that wrong. She changed it. I actually had only seen up to like halfway, so the second half is new for me. She changed the story yet again. That's the point. No one asked her. She initiated the conversation. She's like Tisha, reaching out to these these detectives and stuff like that with multiple different stories. You don't get to then go to court and be like, I want all of that kept out. That I'm sorry. It makes no sense. I don't like it at all.
And in the aftermath of that text message, did the defendant come in for another interview?
Yes,
And when was that interview conducted?
October 31st,
Where?
at the FBI headquarters,
By whom?
by myself and Agent Solomon.
About how long was that interview?
I believe it was over an hour.
How did she get there?
I believe her
A
mother.
few days later, this interview.
And did she leave the FBI office after that interview was completed?
She did.
And how she get home or wherever it was that she was living?
I believe we were done with her vehicle that day as well, so she took her vehicle home.
Okay. Can you briefly describe the substance of y'all's interview with the defendant on that day?
So we discussed this new story that she wanted to tell us about the timeline of that night and how her original story was a lie.
And what did you all do as she's telling you this?
Agent Solomon and I more so played along with her story just to see exactly where it was going to go.
So she says, I'm not, my first story was a lie. I'm not going to lie for Danny anymore. And they play along with it to get her to keep talking. They want to keep, they want to hear her keep going. It's so similar to Tisha. I'm sorry to keep making the points, but with us looking so closely at everything she did after her crime, I see so many similarities. Those of you that have followed that with me, if you see those similarities, please let me know because it's just blaring
And then
in my
one
face.
point, she wanted to go outside for a smoke break. So we took a break.
Okay. At any point in your and Solomon's interview of her on the 31st, did you challenge her on this new story or press her on how it conflicted with previous ones?
Not to my knowledge.
Is it fair to say you all were just kind of trying to get the new account on the record?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that interview ended with, I guess you all just getting to a stopping point and going out for a smoke.
Yeah, mine and Agent Solomon's.
Now,
Yes.
thereafter, was there any additional law enforcement interview with her that day?
There was.
And who conducted that?
Agent Snyder.
And this is after the smoke break?
It is.
How did she end up getting back into the interview room and being in that question?
So just after she's done, she had a smoke break in the front of the building. So I believe just whenever she was done, she just came back in.
Now, is it Snyder in this interview challenges her a little bit more
He does.
she had been challenged to this point, right? And there are points where between the two of them where it got a little bit heated.
Yes.
He was in there for all of about 15 minutes on that day.
Yeah.
I'll just ask you this because we're gonna watch that portion in a little bit when the recording devices are turned. But is it fair to say that
We're going to watch that in a little when the recording devices are turned off. Claus had told me that there were several things that were not to be recorded. So that, yeah, we're seeing the full hearing, what was put out, but, being there in person, there was quite a bit more that wasn't recorded.
15-minute bit with Special Agent Snyder on October 31st, after you and Special Agent Solomon have talked to her, is as heated and I guess aggressive as it ever got between the defendant and law enforcement during this whole investigation.
Correct.
So that would represent like kind of the high water mark of intensity of the question.
Yes.
Okay. Now that interview is in our exhibits as State's Exhibit 28. State's Exhibit 29 is a rights advisement form from October 31st. Was that completed by you or Solomon or Snyder?
I believe Agent Solomon filled out the form.
Okay, so she was advisor for rights at some point during your interview that day?
Yes.
Was it at the beginning?
No, it was after a brief discussion before.
Okay, so you interviewed her for a while and then advised her for rights and got a waiver at some point partway through the interview?
Yes.
Was that, is it fair to say that was done out of an abundance of caution?
It was.
There was no belief that she was in custody that day, right?
No.
Somebody just felt that she ought to be Mirandized?
Yes.
Okay. Now, all the while, this landfill search has been going on, right?
Yes.
Y'all have been looking for Quentin in the landfill, and at some point y'all found it.
We did.
When was that?
That was November 18th.
Okay. After that, was the decision made to obtain arrest warrants?
It was.
And who got those?
I did.
When did you get arrest warrants for the defendant?
November 21st.
And did you arrange for her to surrender herself?
We could make a calendar with dates that came out in this of the different interviews. The Tabby Island, wasn't that what it's called, where they were out drinking, all the things that happen on social media versus these interviews. I think that'd be so interesting to see. Plus, sometimes I need like something visual to fully grasp something. Where can we watch the whole court appearance? So, Shorty, all we can see is what Court TV put out. Let me see. I will link this for you so you can, see what's out there, but they didn't record everything. So let's see if this is too long for you to click on. If it is, I'll put it on the community tab when the live ends. Yeah, it did 2 comments. I would like to make a visual, some kind of chart or something outlining those dates and what was happening on social media, the drinking, just the different things. Time is precious, y'all. I have so many things that I want to do. So many, like there was a couple things I wanted to point out with other cases and little things that I'll work on along the way. And I never have the time to do everything I need to do. Plus you guys, we all have our real lives and our kids and those kind of things that we're doing. And my life is just chaotic as can be right now. But maybe we can find some time to do that. Oh my gosh, this little lizard right beside me is like flaring his neck out. Like, and this big red fan thing comes out of his neck. It's pretty creepy. Sorry, totally took my attention. Let's keep listening. We're almost done with this. And then I'm going to bring Claus up and I can't wait for you guys to hear from her being there.
I wouldn't say that was the initial idea. While we were coming up with an idea on how to best arrest her, we were reached out by Ms. Billy Joel that Leilani needed to come somewhere because she was not welcome at Billy's house.
Okay. And where and when did she come into police custody?
On November 21st.
And where was that?
At the FBI headquarters.
And how she get there?
I believe a family friend may have driven Leilani and Billy to the precinct.
Okay. And was she interviewed that day?
She was.
You guys had arrest warrants already, and you knew that she wasn't leaving that day.
I did.
When was she informed of that? Was she informed of that in relation to the interview?
Of the arrest warrants?
But the fact that she wasn't able to leave, that she wasn't leaving.
I believe she knew from the start that she was being arrested. However, it wasn't said by us.
Is it your belief that her mother told her that?
It is.
Have you all told her mother that that's why?
Not to my knowledge, but I think it is assumed at that point.
Okay. She was interviewed at FBI office that day?
She was.
By whom?
Myself and Agent Solomon.
And this time, was she Mirandized at the outset?
She was.
And did she waive her rights and agree to speak with you all?
She did.
And about how long was this interview?
Approximately 2 hours.
And what was the tone of this interview in terms of the approach that you and Solomon were taking?
I think, again, we took a very casual approach, even with our difficult questions and accusatory questions. At some points, it was a bit confrontational, but it was never anything unusual.
State's Exhibit 31 is the rights advisement form. State's Exhibit 32 is the interview. I'd like to publish just a couple of portions of this. The first being the advisement. Could we play, please, from your word, State's Exhibit 32?
Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. Pass, thank you so much. Pass said always good vibes and good conversation here. Alex, thank you. Keep up the great work. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate that so much. And fun size, they played the 911 call, and they just pointed out different times her story changed along the way, a few different lies, her willingness to do these interviews and things like that. Also, Maria, I did get pictures of the lizard just now flexing and the big orange thing coming out of his neck. So when this is over, I'll show you guys. We got 5 minutes left.
Could we play from 21 minutes and 0 seconds in to 23 minutes and 0 seconds in? So there's 2 minutes. Close as you can get.
We do have some updates that we're in. We just want to make sure that we're in a good spot. And since we talked about last time, we have to show you the right form so we can get through that. And I had a pen. I know. Thank you. Yeah, I swear I had it. I may have stolen it. So, like I said, these are updates, but we're sure a lot of questions on them. So, before we ask any questions, you understand your rights, have the right to remain silent, anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer or advice before we ask you any questions. You have the right to have a lawyer with you during questions. Counter court lawyer, one will be appointed for you for any questions, if you wish. And if you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you have a right to stop answering at any time. And it's just says that you read, you did. Oh, very, so good. I don't know. Yeah, because we'll send you other pieces later. Say we watched you. And if you don't want to just kind of ensure that we went through those CDs all. Sure, we can all share a piece of it. Okay. Always, whatever you're ready for. So, you remember 2 promises I made to you? No, that's how
She indicated that she understood her rights, or at least didn't seem to have any confusion about them. And going forward from there, did she willingly answer questions you all asked?
She did.
When that interview ended, was she served with arrest warrants and taken to jail?
She was.
There's one more bit I wanted to play, actually. Could you publish from that same exhibit 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 17 seconds?
Roll the memories, Leilani.
2 hours, 5 minutes, or I'm sorry, yeah, 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 17 seconds or so. That's fine right there.
Well, this was a lie. We've established that today. It's because I don't know what happened.
Leilani, you know that you went to the dumpster. You know that you put them in the dumpster.
So Brad told me the first time that I came out of sentence.
The moment you started the Orgel story, I think you knew. As hard as it is, as hard as it is.
Well, don't make that was the only thing that makes sense. That's why. That was the only thing that makes sense. Came in, I put it in the mirror, that was okay.
Right, and then you had the story with Brad and Savannah, where you finally spoke about the dumpster. You told us that if he's in there, you're gonna take responsibility.
Yes, I know, but I'm trying to.
And then you came and you told us that it was actually Danny that night. So see how that's starting to cover up stuff?
But it is me trying to make sense of it. I don't have a substantial memory of anything other than my baby. But I'm willing to take these freaking charges because of what I did and I did it.
I don't have substantial memory of anything, but I'm willing to take these charges because if I did it, I did it. And they're like, well, you know, you went to the dumpster. Your Oragel story shows that very clearly. You then changed the story and blamed it on Danny. If you know, not having memory is one thing, but all these different stories and blaming different people is a whole nother ballgame. Oh my God Almighty. Wow. Wow.
I played that minute or so up to 2 hours, 6 minutes and 33 seconds in, just to ask you, did it ever get much more intense than that?
No.
I mean, is that about as confrontational as you got in that interview? Okay.
Thank you, Shorty, for being here. I know, unsupervised. If I did it,
Any promises of leniency in that interview?
I'll take the blame.
Any threats or insinuation of any non-physical harm or anything like that? Yeah, I don't think I have any other questions for you.
All right, thank you very much. First.
Okay, so let's see. Let me show you guys this little lizard, and I'm going to drop the link and get Claus to come up for a few minutes. I want her to explain how it felt being there, what, anything that she wanted to point out or noticed. What did I do? Hold on. Let me start the screen share. This is before he did it again. He's just sitting on the little swing across from me. Let me drop the link. Might copy. Here we go. And that link is for Claus. Air Force Vet, thank you for the super sticker. That is sweet. I appreciate that. You want me to drop the link for the interview again? Was it clickable? Because it looks like it took up 2 comments. So I don't know if it's clickable. If it's not, I can put it on the community tab. Air Force Vet, thank you again for the super sticker. I appreciate that. It is not the trial, Angela, and it's not a dumb question at all. So it's not her trial. It was just a motions hearing, but they did go through some evidence and stuff because she filed a motion that she wanted 911 calls and a few different interviews and things kept out of the trial. So, all right, well, we're waiting on her. Let me show you the next picture while you see. This is what he was doing. This red thing coming out of his neck. And then he was moving his arms like up and down like he was doing push-ups. Look at him. And if that does not take your attention away from whatever you are looking at or focusing on, I don't know. I didn't have those in West Virginia. Okay, so I'm just waiting on Miss Claus to click the link for us. Yeah, I'll post it on the community tab right now. Open in Safari. Ooh, but cute. The push-ups thing is weird. It's like literal push-ups. Like one time last year, the first time I ever seen a lizard do this, there was 2 on the porch and they were like face to face with each other and like doing push-ups at each other. Like they were showing off like I can do it better. I don't know. It's weird. Okay. So the link to the hearing is going up on the community tab right now. I'll just post it with the star right now, so I don't have to spend the time to do a post or anything, but it should be available on my community tab. You guys grab that link and you can watch. Is Claus still here? Let's see. I do know that, yeah, Leilani's mom was there. That was one thing she told me. Let's see. I'm terrified of lizards, but they're so adorable. Copy. Here's the link again. She might be behind because it seems like her comment was behind at one point. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, big and bad. I can do more push-ups than you. Okay. It's so cool. Yeah, it's so weird. Let me see the couple little things that I took notes from what she told me yesterday. I hope everything's okay. Texting the officer. She said at one point, Leilani asked for, during an interview, she says, I'm going to wait and get an attorney like my mom asked, like my mom said I should do. And that stood out to Claus. I don't know where she's at. I hope everything's okay. I don't see her commenting anymore either. And then, let's see, the texting the officer, changing the story on Danny. I think just being there in person, though, I wish that she was still in here because I know she wanted to explain how it felt. And I cannot imagine. I just know that, like, oh, I see the girl lizard now. I see why he was doing that. I've told you guys, I would not redo my content on the Wells case the same at all. However, I still would go up there and just see the area for myself again, because in person, it is so different. The whole town, but especially like Ben Hill Road. I didn't go on their property. Of course, I would never do that. But just seeing the area in person is much different than seeing it online. Being somewhere in person where you can feel people's energy, and I don't know, it's just different. Oh, there she is. Hold on. Let me put my little overlay up just in case it's a Claus impersonator. Wait, I just changed the background. I'm stupid. Not, hold on. Wrong thing. Hold on, Claus. I'm about to bring you up. I just want to put an overlay in case it's an impersonator. Sorry, you guys. I don't have a lot of... Are you there?
I'm here. You hear me?
Okay, so yes, I can hear you.
I'm just going to have to stay naked because I don't have a bed.
Okay, that's all right. First, I just want to tell you thank you. Thank you for going. Thank you for caring. Thank you for sharing with me and with everybody. I know it's like an emotional thing, so thank you for giving yourself for us to, get a little closer look. But yeah, share whatever you want. How did it feel? What made you want to go in person? And what was it like being there in person?
I first want to start off by thanking you. You're doing an amazing, beautiful job for Quentin. Of course, he grabbed my heart. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional already.
Oh no, don't apologize.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
You asked me the first time I went to court on March 26th, the emotion I felt.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard when you're looking at a person And I hate to say it, Leilani looks a lot like Quentin. Quentin looks a lot like her. And it's
Yeah.
hard looking at this evil, nasty, disgusting person and seeing that face. And all I could do was picture in my mind him. I could picture him laying there and her being the mom she was supposed to be. I can't even call her that to him. Him crying and him expecting this mom to put her arms in there and pick him up and comfort him.
Yeah.
And instead, she supposedly takes this object and hits him. I just picture myself wishing and praying I was there to protect him, to pick him up in my arms and hug him so tight and tell him how much I love him.
Yeah.
And instead, she did that.
Yep.
That's how I felt when I was in that room. That's how I felt. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Felt
We have a
when I
slight
was
delay,
in the
but you're
room.
fine.
That's how I felt when I was in that room seeing her for the first time.
Yeah. Like you see him in her, and I can't imagine. I just cannot imagine. What about this time? What things stood out to you the most? What was her demeanor like this time and last time?
When I went yesterday, of course, we talked last night about a lot of it. BJ did a show in there. She was there. And I actually talked to her a little bit. And when I looked in her eyes, a lot of people may be whatever and think whatever. And I had my mixed feelings about her too. But also at the same time, I saw this person, this grandmother sitting there, her face all red, constantly crying. And I said to her, I'm sorry about what happened to Quentin. I'm sorry you're going through this. And there are some people out there who support you. And I'm praying for you. And as she was crying and wiping tears off her face, she looked at me and she said, thank you, I appreciate it. And I said, can I go get you a tissue?
Oh.
When I looked in her eyes, I see a person, and a lot of times when you look in somebody's eyes, you can see and feel exactly what they're feeling. If you look really deep and you try and look. And what I seen in her eyes and in her soul was this broken person. A lot of people say she deserves to go to jail and she deserves to be punished. And to a certain degree, I agree with that. But yet at the same time, it's different when you look a person in the face and you feel, I mean, think we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all make bad decisions. And I'm pretty sure the rest of her life, she's going to feel like she's living in prison because she's held Quentin in her arms. I feel the way I feel, and I've never touched him. I've never got to kiss him on his forehead. I've never got to know him personally, but she did. And when I looked into her eyes, it's not a person that she's living with. She has this heart broken. Her soul is broken. And I'm sure she's going to be living in prison and hell the rest of her life, knowing if she would have made a different decision, her grandbaby would still be here today.
Oh yeah. You know, that's how I feel about it. Okay, so because this is going to lead me to my next question. I have a lot of sympathy for BJ because I truly believe that you could see that she loved this baby. I did not see that with Leilani. We watched BJ grieve on all these live streams, all these protesters out there. She couldn't even speak sometimes because she was crying so hard. She was devastated. And I'm sure she never imagined that her daughter was capable of this. But Leilani didn't act like that, and I'm curious. You say BJ, you know, her face is all red, she's crying in court. Did you ever see any kind of emotion like that with Leilani?
The first time I was there, she was smiling with one of her lawyers laughing. It's like, and even when I saw her there yesterday, she was masked up. Her eyes were red, but I don't believe it was crying because of whatever. When she first came in the courtroom, walked in there, she looked at her mom, and you know how you can see somebody kind of smiling with their eyes, even though she had a
Yeah.
mask on? It was like she was doing
Yeah.
that. And BJ, it looked like she only kind of glanced at her. She was hardly looking at her that much. And there was this one part, because there's some parts that they didn't show, like graphic parts, like things they were
Yeah.
talking about, like the bulldozer. They talked about the trash. And when they brought up maggots, I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word, but when they brought up
Yes.
maggots, I looked over there at BJ, and her head was in her face, crying so hard. So hard. And it took a while for her to get her face out of her hands. And it's different when you see somebody in person than when you just talk about them. Because every single one of us, I don't care who you are, have made bad decisions in your life and you live to regret it.
Yep.
She's no different.
Agree.
She's a human
Yep.
being. And it's
And
like
remember,
it's like she
no, go ahead.
constantly is crying. And there was one moment, there was this police officer in there, and she told us to turn off all our phones. Well, I turned mine off, and then all of a sudden mine was coming back on for some reason. And I looked at that officer and I said, I promise I did not turn it on. It came on by itself. And the police officer says, well, my watch does that sometime. I said, well, I don't want to get in trouble. And for a slight minute, BJ started laughing. For a slight minute, she laughed. And I'm thinking inside, for that slight minute, she was able to laugh instead of cry. For a slight minute.
Well, you know, I know that people feel the way they feel because she wasn't supposed to leave him alone with Leilani, right? But here's the thing. She would probably never dream that Leilani would do what she did. And remember, she is the one who first told us that Leilani was lying and Leilani was a liar on that interview she did with her husband. Remember? She's like, that's what 1st made people so suspicious of Leilani, because Billy Joe came out and said she's lying and she lies all the time. Can't believe a word she says. I don't know what's going on, but I just want my grandson found now. And she's lying. You know, so
let me tell you, I was one of those people. There's things I still don't agree with her telling Leilani, well, don't talk to him until you have a lawyer. No, I don't agree with that, because then you're making me think. No, you should be thinking of your grandchild more than her. But yet at the same time, it's different when you're sitting there in front of a person. You're not behind in just a chat or behind a camera. You get to see this person as a human being instead of whatever. But I believe I've seen video of her with Quentin before, and her playing with him and her laughing and stuff. So I mean, I believed it yesterday when I looked in Billy Joe's eyes I see the pain and hurt and the heartbreak in her. So it's a lot different because believe me, I was one of those people who feel blah, blah, blah. She deserves, and in a way, she still deserves some kind of punishment. But even if she doesn't get it, she's going to be having that punishment the rest of her life because she's going to have to live with the decision she's made. And that's a lot worse than prison, knowing that your grandbaby is not here to fulfill his dreams. If he wanted to be a
Yeah.
doctor or a lawyer, to find his first love, to have his child, to have an education, to go to his first prom, to do all these things that we want to do in life, he's never going to be able to do. And as a grandparent, as a human being, that's something she has to live with, knowing in her heart she made wrong decisions and allowing this beast, this monster, this nasty AB to be able to have an opportunity to do this to this precious, beautiful baby boy, Quentin Simon.
Yeah. I agree with you. I do. And you guys in the chat, people can have whatever opinions they want about the situation. Just keep it respectful. But if you disagree or whatever, that's absolutely fine. We do not have to all agree here. That is just one thing. But I got to say this, I've said a million times, like it's frustrating to me when people spread the rumors and the misinformation and do the clickbait. And I have said it here many times because there are so many people watching who see these cases and they care so much. And this is a huge example of that. I just want to point that out. Look at the way that Quentin has touched Claus's life, and
I mean, y'all gotta stop and think. Y'all gotta stop and think. Quentin has a brother and sister, and one day they're gonna grow up and watch these lives. They're gonna watch them.
Yeah.
They're gonna read chat.
100%.
They're going to see all these things that people are saying that are disgusting. So think about what you're putting out there for these babies to see one day. Think about it.
I am so glad you said that because that's an excellent point, and people forget that all the time with Summers brothers too. It's the truth. There was a question in chat. Was anybody else there that you noticed, or was there a lot of people there? Was the courtroom empty? What was that like?
Other than BJ and stuff, that was the only major person there. And I was actually, again, only a pew away from Leilani, and BJ was a little bit down on the same pew as me. So I was kind of in the middle of both of them. So imagine.
Right. Oh, I cannot imagine. I can't imagine being that close to her the same way. Like if I thought the same thing with people sitting right in behind Tisha watching the hearing. You have to have some control over yourself, because I asked Claus, I'm like, what was that like? Like, did you feel like, I just want to, like, I don't know, go off on her. And she's like, no, because I'm there for Quentin. Go ahead. You can say.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it took all of me the first time I was there in court because she was in a ponytail. It took all of me not to want to grab that ponytail and spin her like that song says, like a shirt, like a helicopter. But I thought of Quentin.
Right.
I thought of Quentin. How am I going to be a voice to him if I do something like that? That makes me no better. How am I going to be a voice? How am I going to carry my heart for everybody in that courtroom every time I have a opportunity for our family community here if I do something stupid? Right. So it took all the love I have for him and all the love I have for everybody down there. Yeah, everybody has the right to their opinion. I have my opinions about BJ, but it's a lot different when you see somebody in person. No, I do not have freaking compassion for that piece of crap that was in front of me. And let me tell you, before she left out that room, she tried looking back at her mama, and guess whose eyes she looked into? Mine. We were eye
Oh, I
to
can't
eye, and I
imagine.
tell you, if she read everything in my eyes, she would have fell through the floor and went to hell right then and there.
Mm,
I felt like I needed to scrub my soul and eyeballs out when she looked at me.
yeah, I bet.
But
I bet that was intense.
and
Well, you're
she
going to go into
also,
all the rest of them. Go ahead.
there's another thing I remember is her saying prior to that happening 2 weeks prior to October 5th, supposedly there was a car she didn't recognize. So I feel like she was using that as part of the abduction. And another
Yep.
lie.
Yep. And that was brought up in the hearing because they were pointing out all the different lies that she told. She's just freaking like Letitia. Lie after lie, story after story. Oh, we got back. There was a strange car. Oh, I'm not lying for Danny anymore. I mean,
Oh, and the other Bubba, Bubba supposedly took them and different stuff like that. And I mean, and then her claiming, how can she be in bed by 12 o'clock, but yet out at supposedly texting on a text saying she's out at 2:04 driving. So how's she sleeping and then yet texting?
yep, exactly. Tess, they didn't.
Hold on a minute. You there?
Oh, unmute it. I muted you until it ended. You have to unmute. You just press the unmute. Claus, they didn't come to, or Tess, they didn't come to any legal conclusion. They said that he was going to have to think about it, right?
Yeah, the judge, again, stated she'll think about it when they come back. She'll give an answer, which they've canceled the rest of the hearings. So now I'm going to have to keep calling back to see when they start up again. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I know it's a pain. It's frustrating. I wanted to cuss up and down, but I was like, you know what? I got to think of it this way. We have to have patience of a mustard seed. Look how long it took Gannon to get his justice. Look how long, and even though it shouldn't even happen, but he did get his justice. I have to have faith of a mustard seed. It's like when you grow something. You put a flower in the soil. You have to have patience for it to grow. It's not on my time when this is going to happen. It's on God's time. And whether she gets whatever, I want her to pay heavily here on this earth. Believe me, I don't want to let her see the day of the sun or have no fun at all. But if it happens, she don't get what she deserves, she will one day when she closes her eyes. One way or another, she will pay for what she did to this beautiful baby boy. But I've got to have faith of a mustard seed. I've got to have faith and patience like growing a flower in soil. I've got to take care of it. Let them take care of it in the system and pray that everything will prevail and that the flower will grow and justice will be served one way or another. But I know one thing, one daggum thing. As long as I breathe, this boy's name will be known. As long as I breathe, he will not be forgotten. As long as I freaking breathe.
I love that. I love it so much. Now, I just want to say, before we wrap it up, you had, so Claus had scheduled her work and everything around these hearings. There were 3 hearings scheduled out, one for like a month from now, another one in, I think, August, and one in October. They canceled all of those. So
May, June, and
Was it?
August. I believe October. October
Yep.
29th, I believe.
Yeah. So, and now we don't know what's going to happen. We're waiting on the judge to rule on if this stuff's going to be left out or it can be in trial. And then I guess they'll schedule the upcoming hearings after that. And so Claus has to just call regularly to find out. Adrian, Claus is up on the panel. She actually went in person to the hearing that we just watched, and she was kind of giving her observations. KNS, thank you so much for that super sticker. That's really sweet, and I appreciate it. Now, there are two things I wanted to point out to you, Claus, two comments. One was Savannah, and she said, thank you so much. She lives in the area. She said maybe next time you guys could get coffee or something like that one time that you go. And then Angela said, any interesting questions that stood out asked by the prosecutor or interesting cross-examination?
Basically what y'all heard on that video was a lot that was stated, except for the graphic parts like the dumpster and the maggots and stuff like that. But there is something I want to state. They never came back with the results of the brain matter or stuff like that yet. But I wanted to mention something. I said this to you yesterday. As far as that, it's hard talking about that. And it's hard to put into words about that. But in a lot of ways, I hope it comes back. Because that means that Quentin is getting justice for himself if that happens.
Yeah, I agree
because
with
that
you.
means she's guilty as heck. She's guilty as heck because that'll prove if that's brain matter, she hit him with something, because that's just not going to happen without being hit. Nope. And he'll give justice
100%.
to himself if that happens.
Yeah, because there's really no other evidence of what exactly happened. What ended his life. Could she get away with a second-degree murder or some other kind of charge, a lesser charge? It's possible. But if that comes back, I'm with you. As hard as it is to say, I hope that it does come back that that's what it is, because then there will be evidence of what happened, and she won't be able to get off with a lesser charge, or she will, she won't be as likely to get off with a lesser charge.
And I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart, the few channels that have spoke of him. All these people that were sick out there doing this, showing the ghosts, showing his spirits, but none of them showed up. None of them. They sure didn't mind making money off of him. Where are they now? Where are they now? When he deserves the same voice as anybody else. Where are they? None of them show up. And it's not fair. He deserves to have a voice. He deserves to be heard. He deserves not to be freaking forgotten. He deserves all the freaking love in the world. Where the freak are they?
Oh, thank you, Tess.
But when it goes to trial, when he goes to trial and it becomes popular again, watch them pop up like mosquitoes.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm
you're
getting
being a voice for it.
You're all being a voice, and I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart in this chat. I want to thank everybody from the bottom of freaking Alex. Thank you for not allowing him to be lost, allowing him to be seen, allowing him to be freaking heard. Thank you, any channel that spoke of him. Thank you. Because that's given him a voice. That's showing him he's not forgotten. He deserves the best.
Yes, he does.
I love him.
You're making hot as water.
I loved him more than life itself. And if I ever was blessed to have a child, he would have been it. So I want to thank everybody for listening and giving him this voice, because it's not freaking fair. Only a few channels out there want to talk about him. He don't deserve that. He don't.
Aw. No, he doesn't. And thank you for going, and thank you for being there. Thank you for being brave enough to speak and tell the story and tell what you've seen. And thank you for being kind to BJ and for everything. Just thank you for everything. And I know that it's tough and I know it's emotional. And this is what, like, I want this to be, this just shows what I talk about with you guys all the time. Like, all the people out there who truly care about these cases, who get invested emotionally so much in these cases, you know, and to be manipulated and clickbaited and all that stuff, it's wrong. It is wrong. It is so wrong. But it's frustrating. Thank you, Claus, for everything. Thank you for being so brave, and thank you for being here and going and keeping us updated factually. She was taking notes and everything.
Thank you for allowing me to be a voice for him and coming up here. Thank you. I'm
You're
sorry,
so
I'm a
welcome.
blubber.
You were so.
I'm sorry.
No, you
I
did
just
great,
love
and you got
him
nothing
so
but love
much.
and support.
I love him
know.
so much. But
know you
thank
do.
you, Alex. Thank you for amazing.
Thank you.
This was amazing.
Thank you, and I hope you see all the chat sending you all the love and support.
Thank everybody.
And yeah,
and
thank
I love all of you.
And anytime you ever want to come back up, when you are always welcome to come and share your experience there. If you don't want to and you want to keep it close to the vest, that's okay too.
I don't mind sharing.
Whatever you.
I want to give all of what I feel for Quentin Simon. He deserves it. He deserves all the love. He deserves to be talked about, not just when it's convenient and they get money on all these channels, when they get these super chats, when they get this and that. He deserves to be talked about. I'm not getting nothing, no money, but I'm getting all the warmth and love of and feeling his spirit with me when I go in this room. Everywhere I go, I feel him. That's enough for me. Is knowing his voice is being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And I love and appreciate you. Thank you for coming up. I'm going to wrap it up. I do want to show another case just really quickly at the end, just touch on it.
All right.
And then I'm going to let you go. But yeah, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let me see here. I'm going to add my screen back to the stage. I just wanted to touch on a case that, and I'll take, there we go. Okay, so there was a person who came in the chat earlier, and when they do come in the chat, I always try to make a point to speak about this case. I have an old video on it. So Mark, that was in the chat earlier, has been on the channel before to speak about his brother. I'm not going to read through all of this. It's just actually highlighting a Dateline episode, but I want you guys to know about this case and about this missing man who has still never been found. So I'm going to grab the link. I'm going to read this too, just the top part talking about the NBC News did a cold case spotlight, and they did a Dateline. It says, brother hoping to reignite search for Harry Milligan, who disappeared 38 years ago in Albia, Iowa. The 21-year-old was last seen in the early morning of July 1st, 1980. Let me grab I'm going to drop the link in the chat right now. I do appreciate Claus coming up so much, and I know that was emotional and tough, and yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to the chat for all the love and support. Here's the link though to this article. So it says, we were really close, Mark said of his older brother Harry. We were the only ones we had. Only 2.5 years apart, Mark and Harry Milligan grew up in the small town of Avery, Iowa with their 4 older siblings. They were a lot older than us, Mark said. When I was like 2, they were 18 or 19. Mark told Dateline that he had been raised by his grandparents since he was 2 years old, but he was officially adopted by them when he turned 18. That's how me and Harry became brothers, Mark said. He told Dateline that Harry had been adopted by Mark's grandparents when he was just a few months old. We don't know who Harry's birth father or mother is. According to Mark, Avery, Iowa is in the middle of nowhere, but the brothers always found an abundance of activities to do. They did a lot of fishing, hunting, those types of things, and played high school sports. It's kind of surprising he ended up as good of an athlete as he was. He told Dateline that Harry was born with 2 club feet and had to have surgery to set them straight. Despite that, he excelled in football, basketball, and he played golf. I was reading that wrong at first. I'm sorry, you guys. Which is awesome. Mark told Dateline that in addition to excelling at sports, Harry was also extremely smart. Although high school, he had great grades. He said that school was easy for Harry. It seems like he could take a look at something, and get straight A's. Mark told Dateline that in 1983, he joined the Marines at only 17 years old. He said that being a Marine ran in the family. My dad, my grandfather that raised us, was a war veteran and a former Marine. Once I joined the Marines, Harry started looking into the benefits. Not long after, Harry joined the Marines to further his education. He decided to join the reserve program so he could use the benefits of that to go to college. In July of 83, Harry headed off to boot camp in San Diego. Mark said he joined first, but Harry went to boot camp first. Since Mark was 17 at the time he joined Marines, he had to wait till he was 18 to go to boot camp. In September, Harry returned home. He came home, and it wasn't too long I left. In January of 84, Harry went off to college. He was living at the dorms, Mark said. By June of 84, the semester was over and he returned home for the summer. He was just going through that period of being young. He was 21 and, like many other 21-year-olds, thought of summer as a time for partying. On June 30th, 1984, Harry was doing just that. Mark told Dateline that since it was the weekend before the 4th of July, there were many things to do in town. Harry went to hang out with friends in Albia, Iowa, about 10 minutes from home. I don't think he had any specific plans. He said Harry and the 3 of his friends ended up at a local bar that night and reportedly left the bar at midnight. According to Mark, the friends then drove around for a couple of hours, drank some beer, dropped Harry back off at his car, that 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix, around 4:30 a.m. The bar that he was at is like a block or so away from the library. Everybody used to park over by the library so the cops wouldn't think you were at the bar. The 3 guys dropped him off at the vehicle, and they say they saw him drive away. That's the very last time anybody ever saw him. And I'm going to stop there. I'm going to drop the link again. I hope that you guys will take a look at this. If you're interested, find the Dateline episode. Watch my interview. Other channels have covered this. Decipher Podcast, True Crime Analysts. Go watch their interviews. So, yeah, I just wanted to take a second when there was a lot of people in here and talk about this case for just a second until he's found. Can you imagine having a loved one missing for that long and no answers? I cannot imagine. That must be horrible. And I do apologize for my stumbling over that one part of the article. I was reading it wrong, as if like he was clumsy, but he was actually born with an issue where he needed surgery. So regardless, I just, like I said, just wanted to take a second to talk about that. He's still not been found. He deserves to be found, Whew, what a life. Thank you guys for being here with me. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate all the mods. I appreciate you, Claus, for coming up and sharing your heart and your story and how this case has touched you and affected you. I say it all the time. There are a lot of people out there who, for one reason or another, may get very invested in a case. Sometimes, I have many friends who have not had had the opportunity or the blessing of having children, and they want kids. They might foster, they might, but there are so many wonderful people out there who would give anything to have the opportunity to raise one of these little babies that we talk about, it like Quentin. I don't know. It's just something to keep in mind. Everything that we do on here and how it may affect people. And also, like she said, his siblings and everything. It's just, Debbie, I have not seen one. I don't know, though. It's been a long time since I looked at it super close. But like I said, I know that Decipher podcast has covered this in depth, and so has True Crime Analyst. There's been a Dateline episode. I think that some other YouTubers, some divers have done a live on it. There are some things out there if you want to kind of learn more about the case. And if you have social media, it can't hurt if you have a Facebook or whatever, even if it's just friends or family, when you see something like that, to share it, But thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to the chat for being kind and respectful, even if you don't necessarily agree. I don't care how people feel one way or another about every single person surrounding that baby. I just want you guys to be respectful. You don't have to agree with me. I have a lot of sympathy for BJ, because when we were watching all those people outside the house and Leilani was just waving like she was, doing her Miss America tour and hello to everybody. The grief that she was going through. And I can't imagine going through what she has. Thank you. I'm definitely interested. A military man missing, he needs found. Oh my God. If you would post about it or anything, that would just be so awesome. All right, you guys. Yep. Leilani and Letitia. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I do love and appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a lovely day. I know this was an emotional one. Claus, I hope that you're okay, and all you guys, everybody. And I'll see you soon. I got lots of things I want to talk about and want to do that are important to me. Hopefully I'll get a chance sometime to show you. But all right. If I don't end it, I'll say goodbye forever. So I really am going to end it now. But I love and appreciate you guys. Bye.